Hello everyone, this video is in our Human Game series, and you might recognise the position after Black's 19th move in the game Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen 5th match game. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're going to get a little bit of an engine perspective on this position. And well, in particular, what I want to do is to show you an absolutely gorgeous tactical line that that my engines came up with when I ran some engine matches from this position. So this was the position in which Magnus Carlsen played Queen to E8. Yeah, I mean, I was analysing this game, without an engine at the same time, and I wanted to play Queen E8 as well. The basic idea is that this bishop on D6 really wants to move away from there, ideally by playing the rook somewhere and then going bishop F8. But if you do that immediately, the queen's going to be a bit exposed on the D file. So ideally, you'd like to swap off the light squared bishops, get yourself a bit of room, and then afterwards move the rook away and the bishop back, and you should be, pretty solid. However, after Queen E8, here Jan played Rook ED1, which was not a great move really. It gave away much of his advantage. But yeah, I mean, all of the commentators pointed out the move C4. And yeah, I mean, this is a very strong move. The idea is to play c5 and chase away the bishop from d6. I mean, the bishop's passive on d6, but it's holding everything together. As soon as you get in c4 to c5, then you get chances to attack the black position. e5 becomes weak, and also c7 becomes weak. Now, the interesting thing is that, I mean, I think this was going to be quite a difficult decision for Magnus, or a difficult challenge, because Black really has to play two moves that are not particularly intuitive. Either to play c7 to c5, just to block the c4 pawn, but it unprotects this bishop on d6, or queen e6, pinning the pawn on c4. By attacking the bishop on b3, but putting the queen opposite the bishop. Not a very easy move for a human player to play. Possible if you're not very happy with all the other alternatives, but not intuitive by any means. I mean, the intuitive move is bishop e6. That's what you wanted to play anyway, and you're stopping c4 to c5 because the bishop on b3 is hanging. But here the downside to queen a4 becomes apparent, because we play bishop a4, hitting the queen with tempo. And yeah, I mean, this gets very interesting now. I mean, Black's got two natural moves, bishop d7 and queen c8, of which bishop d7 is kind of the move you'd want to make. And queen c8 is the sort of move you'd play if, all right, yeah, feels a little bit dodgy, but that's what we've got to do. But bishop d7, we go c5. Bishop takes a4, rook takes a4, and actually already Black has to resort to tactics to keep his position afloat, because bishop e7, knight f5 is really unpleasant for Black, because, well, and remember this idea, queen c6 is met by knight takes e5, when knight e5, knight e7 check wins the whole house. So you go queen c6, pinning the pawn rather to the queen on c2. Yeah, seems like you sort of get away with it. But White's got this very strong move, queen c4. And if you go bishop e7, knight f5, threatening this knight e5 trick. If you go rook e8, I've got a good tactic here, and that's bishop takes h6 here, which is somewhat unexpected, but yeah, making use of the queen and the knight combining against f7. Actually, king g7 is possible, because queen f7, king h6 is nothing, but we've just got a very unpleasant idea here, which is after king g7, we just go knight f5, and then we just go rook a6. If you go queen b5, I'm just going to take on e7 check, and then take on b5, and then take on f6, and I'll just claim that I've got a really nice extra pawn. And this move, which, I thought, well, is this going to be vaguely okay? It's not vaguely okay. I mean, I was sort of hoping that this position might be something for Black. Black might have something, but my engines assess it as +4 or something. So I'm sure they'll do a pretty good job of winning this. So this is really, really unpleasant. I mean, the best line that Black's got after queen c4 is to go rook a8, but after rook a1 takes. bishop e7, knight f5. You know, white is clearly on top here. So yeah, I mean, this is really unpleasant. So queen c8 is actually the best move, but my initial thought here, you know, when I was analysing again without an engine, was that this was really very unpleasant for black. I play c5, bishop e7, and then knight f5. That was the move I wanted to play. So again, you know, I'm threatening knight takes e7 and then knight takes e5, simply winning a pawn. Yeah, I mean, what can you do? Knight takes c4. I take on e7 check first and pick up the knight. That's not going to work. Something like bishop f5, ef5. You know, this knight's really embarrassed. I mean, you've got this idea. I mean, I was looking at bishop b3, which was huge. Bishop h6, whack. Opening up the attack on the bishop on e7 was my engines line. And fg, rook a3. Coming over to g3, you know, it's just total game over. Very powerful stuff. There's a couple of moves, though, that black can, you know, hold some sort of balance with. One of them is knight d5, when, you know, there's various ideas. Something like takes, queen c3, f6 and c6 is pretty nice for white, but my engines were managing to hold this after a great number of moves, but they were managing to hold this, so the advantage is probably manageable. But rook b4 was the move that my engines wanted to play most of all, and it's really, really interesting. I mean, I thought it was just tactically absolutely impossible, but it turns out to be quite okay. We're threatening rook takes c4 as black. Knight takes c5 would be absolutely lovely to play, with knight e7 coming, but here I've just got bishop takes f5. So knight g6, bishop g6, piece extra for black. What I really wanted to play after rook b4 was this move bishop d2. Black plays rook c4, and I thought I will take, and go queen b1 here. And I think this rook's going to get into trouble because rook takes c5, I've got bishop b4. And indeed, it's not easy to find a way for black, but there is a way, and that move is queen b8. And the idea is to exchange off queens, and then the pawn on e4 is going to hang. And yeah, it just seems like a tiny advantage for white, but just nothing amazing. But what surprised me, and this is kind of the point of the whole video really, is that my engines wanted to play bishop c1. And I was thinking, well, I don't understand this. Okay, we're protecting the e4 pawn, we're threatening knight takes c7 and knight e5, but why would bishop c1 be better than bishop d2? What on earth could be the reason for that? Well, after rook c4, which is obviously not the best move, there is an amazing tactic, and maybe take a little look to see whether you can spot it. It's a nice little idea. It's knight takes c5, amazingly. Rook takes c2, knight g6. Never seen a tactic like this before. I mean, two knights are actually aiming for the e7 square. You can't destroy both. So if the king and the queen remain where they are, then there's going to be a fork of the queen and king somehow. And of course, you know, we're threatening to take the bishop, and we're threatening to take the rook, and this rook is also on prise. Now, you know, if the bishop was on d2 here, then in this position, and after knight g6 we would just take here, takes, king h7, knight c8, rook takes d2, and actually black is even better here, because after knight a7, knight h5, it's very difficult to defend this white king side. You know, rook f1, I'll go bishop c4, I guess, and f3, I'll go knight f4, so that would be horrible. Only with the bishop on c1, there's no rook takes d2, so this simply that this rook is hanging. So you know, after knight g6, if you go fg, I go take, check, and knight c8, and we've got bishop on c2 hanging, and I'm a piece up as well. And you know, black's got nowhere to put his rook on the second rank. So I mean, it's what's the best line? The best line is to go King H7 here for black, and then we've got Knight Fe7. Everything comes with tempo. Rook C1. We've got to take this one, which is a bit unfortunate. But after Queen B8, Knight F8 check takes Knight D5. Then White's got a clear advantage. Okay, 2 rooks against the Queen and a pawn, yeah, I mean, just a generally commanding position. And the final little point to it is that after Knight D5 takes, Bishop takes, looks very reasonable, getting our pawn back. No way, Jose. Rook E8 traps the Queen. The Queen's got nowhere to go. I mean, beautiful variations there from the engines. So, that's why Bishop C1 is the most accurate, and I can tell you I wouldn't have necessarily thought of this during the game. I mean, what is the best line for black? Something like, for example, Queen A8, Knight E7, Bishop B2, Rook takes E4, Bishop takes E5. Still quite annoying for black, but maybe holdable. And maybe even better is this move, Queen D8. Just actually, holding everything together. If Knight E7 will take with the Queen, and just basically trying to, just to survive for the moment. Rook A3, C6, Bishop D2. Here, Knight D7, Knight takes C7. Knight takes C7 was the main idea here. With just a very pleasant position for White. I mean, 2 bishops, weak pawns, weak squares, but my engines managed to hold this in some way. But how many moves did it take? Oh, I don't know, 107 there for Stockfish to survive against Komodo Dragon. So in principle, this was a very nice chance for White. This move 20c4. I mean, simply because the after 20c4, I think the ways to maintain just a slight disadvantage were non-intuitive moves, and the intuitive moves, well, that needed some pretty fancy stepping from black in order to get to some sort of unpleasant but tenable position. And it's the sort of thing where you make one misstep and then it can sort of easily snowball onto more mistakes. So obviously Magnus is a superb defender, so if anyone in the world has got a chance of playing it well, then it's him. But would have been a bit of an unpleasant little afternoon for him, I think. Whereas after the move Rook E1, he was pretty comfortable playing pretty natural moves to to hold the position. And well, you just saw the speed at which he played all this stuff, and also the speed at which he curled up into a ball and put his pieces into great squares. It was really very impressive from that point onwards. So there we are. Just that's the fun I had with my engines during those games. I mean, really, again, I can always recommend just playing engine matches from various positions within a game. It gives you so much insight, and sometimes it's just amazing games that really cement an idea in your head. Wow, I'll never forget that. And sometimes they just avoid stuff, and you think, they're avoiding that, but why? And then you look a bit deeper, like this game, and you understand why they're playing what they do. And again, anything that's evocative, anything that really catches your fancy or makes you laugh or makes you interested, that's always going to stay in your head forever, and that's an extra piece of knowledge that you've got. And well, I think that engine games are a very, very good way of building up that knowledge. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. If you liked the video, why not give me a like? Why not even subscribe to the channel, or take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which has lots of interesting stuff like this. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you with the next video.